Imagine you're flying at a speed of 500 kilometers per hour and you need to hit the middle of this little basket. Seems almost impossible, right? But this is exactly the routine our Eurofighter Typhoon pilots all around the world are doing when they are refueling mid-air. Today it's all about air-to-air refueling, and of course we take a ride in the highest tanking station of Europe, the Airbus A330 MRTT. So join me now, this is the Fighter Show with Flo. So here we are now at the main operating base of the MMU in Eindhoven in the Netherlands. If you wonder what MMU means, well, very easy abbreviation, Multinational MRTT Unit. And MRTT stands for the most sophisticated and best tanker in the world, the Airbus A330 MRTT. As we are here on military grounds, we report, of course, first to the commander. So join me now, this is the Fighter Show with Flo. Lieutenant Colonel Christian Suhr. Hi Lieutenant Colonel, how are you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Thanks for having us, first of all. Now, the MMU is a very special organization within NATO. What is it all about?
Yeah, special, very good observation indeed. The special about our unit is that we took a civil aircraft like the A330 and we added some military components to it so that it became a multi-role transport aircraft, and that the aircraft could fulfill different military taskings as well, like not only transport passengers and cargo, but also to do air refueling and strategic aeromedical evacuation as well.
Now the MMU is a multinational organization, and I'm wondering, how can you book a tanker? How can I book an MRTT flight?
Yeah, it's like not that you go to a travel agency and book it like that, but our travel agency, so to say, is the European Air Transport Command. The operational control belongs to them, so the participating nations do their air transport request to the EATC. The EATC tasks the unit, and then we go flying.
Lieutenant Colonel, what's the plan for today?
For today, we plan an air refueling mission with some Eurofighters over German territory. And yeah, if you want to join, feel free to jump in.
Thanks for the offer. Now, before we get to the plane, here is the official Fighter Show patch.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us, guys. And this is the Fighter Show with Flo.
We expect 6 Eurofighters in the Tina track, which is overhead Rostock-Lage area in a level of 26,000 feet.
So it's slowly rotating up. So we might encounter some rain and snow showers, and in that rain and snow showers you see that the airport visibilities are down and low ceilings.
Specifics for the Eurofighters: altitude minimum 2000 AGL, maximum of 35,000 feet with an optimum of 20,000 feet. In case that an immediate separation is needed between the tanker and the receiver, any crew member can call for the breakaway. In this case it's multi-1-2 breakaway, breakaway, breakaway. I will push the breakaway button, the receiver will make the disconnect, it will move back and down. And when we need vertical separation, I will state to the cockpit, clear to climb. Is the receiver is well clear, I will state the receiver is well clear, and the cockpit will terminate the separation.
Okay, then from my side, you are cleared to split, and as well, Kevin, you with your crew as well.
Yeah, see you at the plane.
Then see you at the plane.
So guys, briefing's done. Now we are up to go to the aircraft. Beforehand, of course, some safety procedures, and the next one is the walk around.
So before we fly, we always do a check on the aircraft, if it's good to fly for us and that we don't see any leftover items from maintenance.
Sure.
So generally start with the engines to look, okay, if I look in the engine, do I see damages to the blades or something else that's not looking out of the ordinary? Doesn't have to take very long, just an little bit, and you see, okay, everything looks fine. If you look here at the bottom of the aircraft, you see these big black stripes. This is something different from an air-to-air refueling aircraft. So once the receiver is in place, he will get lights indicating to him when he's at the boom if he is in position of the aircraft. So if you go a little lower, you'll see on the right side the letter A, and you will see the F here. So it's forward, aft. And the lights will tell the pilot, are you too much forward or too much aft?
So this is exactly what you don't have at a civil airplane.
Exactly, yeah, it's a military system. The same on this side. If you go down a little bit, you see the D and the U. It's for down and up. So
the access.
exactly. So when it's connected to the boom, we don't have to talk to the pilot. We will get light signals if he's still in position. So the refueling pod is what we're going to use today. It's going to extend the hose, and the hose is going to provide fuel from our own tanks on the aircraft to the receiver pilot.
And you also check that separately, or is it just a visual check now?
It's a visual check, so it's important to look at the propeller in front. It's in the right position, so it should be in a position that it's not conducting any drag at the moment. And that propeller is used to bring the pressure on the fuel system. So here on the pod you can nicely see the basket that we're going to see extend in the flight. You can also see some lights on the right and the left, telling the pilot again, are you to watch forward or watch aft. And generally for a pilot it's harder to connect to a basket drogue than to the boom, because the boom is flown by our operator, so it just needs to be in position. But the basket is really something the pilot needs to do. And there's also some interference mostly with the fighter and the basket with the airflow, so it makes it very difficult for him to connect. Following along the aircraft again, we've got the inspection cameras, which is also a military system. You can see him rotate right now. This is for the refueling operator to look at the aircraft that is taking fuel.
Okay, that's what you see then in the cockpit?
Yeah, partly this one, but also this one. This is also a camera box that we use. So it's also something that's typically for the military aircraft. Again, looking for any damages to the control surfaces, checking the pod for condition, and that kind of completes our walk around.
So guys, Chris says the aircraft is ready. Let's get on board of the Airbus A330 MRTT and refuel some Typhoons. And by the way, what many of you might not know is that the Airbus A330 MRTT inside looks just like a normal passenger plane. And also in the cockpit, it looks like a normal passenger airplane. So, see that? Just the ordinary configuration. And then you turn around and you see this. Hi Kai, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Kai, you are air refueling operator here on board. It looks like a normal passenger plane, 111 tons of fuel. Where do you hide that?
Yeah, we have basically our normal standard tanks of an A330 and that's it. We do not have extra tanks.
And that's sufficient to refuel the other aircraft?
Well, that's quite a lot, huh?
Now we need to talk a bit about your workspace here. What do we see?
My workspace, that's the mission console. I do not go into details too much, but I have panoramic vision here that shows me everything was going on behind my aircraft, and I have a multifunctional display here. Currently we have a 3D version because we have a 3D monitor for boom refueling to have a good vision on the receiver, like normal and not like a TV set. And of course we have a fancy 3D glasses of it. So you have a very clear picture.
Wow, and it's never too dark to be cool, of course. Right?
Never, of course.
Now, Kai, we also need to talk about the different variants of refueling. So you mentioned it, you got the boom, but for the Eurofighter pilots, the hose is the more important one because they're refueling via that. How long is that hose?
Yep, it's called prop and drogue system, and the hose is actually 88 feet long, which are about 25 meters.
Let's talk a bit about the sequence of refueling. How does that normally work?
Yeah, it's basically standard. We're working according to ATP. So when the receivers join my boom frequency on the radio, that is usually 1 mile out, we make a radio check and I ask him nose code switch is safe. That is for our safety here as well. And then I call them in and say approaching us on the left wing, that is called echelon left. Then I discuss with them the sequence and how much fuel they need. And then I guide them behind my aircraft to the different positions. And after air-to-air refueling, they're ending up on the right wing, that is echelon right, and I release them.
Let's talk a bit about the amount of fuel you can pump into a fighter jet.
Yeah, it depends on the fighter jet. Huh? That depends on their own refueling systems, what their tanks and can take in a minute. But we can go above 1800 kilos per minute.
That's massive. And you can do that also in parallel. So when you've got one on the left and one on the right.
Yeah, and with the boom system, we go over 3,000 kilos per minute.
Kai, last question I need to ask you for a friend. Where are the buttons to extract the hose?
Yeah, it's not very fancy. I can show you here. So we have basically only 2 buttons to energize the system that I'm not very special, and we have 2 buttons for jettison in case we have problems with the hose and we want to avoid to land with a trailed hose, we can jettison.
So you really can throw it away?
Yeah. Of course, under special circumstances, not overpolluted area and whatever, and that is really the last resort. Huh?
Got it, Kai. Kai, you really have the most fancy place in that whole aircraft.
Absolutely.
And as everybody who is part of the Fighter Show, also you get the official Fighter Show patch. Kai, that's yours. Thank you very much. The Airbus A330 MRTT is a very versatile aircraft. So it's not only doing tanker and transport, but the MMU is also performing medevac. The Airbus A330 MRTT can also be used as a flying hospital. And the configuration we see here and the MMU is using is unique. And it also shows how much effort the nations are putting in the fact to bring wounded soldiers home from the battlefield. Hi Peter, how are you doing?
I'm fine.
Peter, you are medical technician here on this MRTT. What do we have here?
This is our medevac configuration for the A330. We have 6 intensive care units or PTUs in the front. Here in the middle sections we have 16 stretchers for intermediate care patients, and in the back we have 60 seats for low patients.
Okay, that means when my arm is broken, I'm sitting in the back, and the more intense it gets, you get closer to the cockpit, right?
Right, yeah.
We've got now here one of those intensive care beds. What exactly do we see there in the back?
These are our medical devices from our Hamilton T1 as an intensive care ventilator to our patient monitoring system, and in the front and in the back here are syringe pumps to bring the medicine into the patients.
Talking about medicine, which kind of medicine do you have here on board?
Everything what you can think about. From a normal bandage up to narcotics, everything is on board what the doctors need.
Okay.
And also 80,000 liters oxygen.
Oh wow, that's huge. So you're really taking care of every eventuality here. You mentioned the doctors. So it's not only the technicians that are flying, but you also got always a team of doctors on board. That's correct?
Of course. It depends on how many patients we have. When we only have 1 patient, we need only 1 or 2 doctors. When we have 16, 20 patients on board, we of course need more doctors to care about.
Okay, Peter, thank you very much for those insights. Here is your Fighter Show patch.
Thank you.
And by the way, the cockpit of the medevac is the same than in any other Airbus A330 MRTTs. Now, I'd be ready for takeoff, but where's my crew? So guys, we reached 25,000 feet altitude and it's time to refuel some Eurofighters, and the first customers are already waiting in the back.
basket. Contact.
So guys, here we are now, back on the flight deck together with Chris. Chris, I think mission accomplished, all Typhoons have been refueled.
Everybody got fuel.
That sounds great. Now, from a pilot perspective, what is the difference from that flight to a normal passenger flight?
Well, in all passenger flight, right, you don't have the aircraft so close to your own aircraft as well. And flying a refueling mission, it takes a little bit more fuel management. So that means that we have to really closely monitor what we give, and that we still have enough fuel to reach our destination. And of course we have to be very careful if something happens with the aircraft around our own aircraft, that we are able to get some space between the aircraft that gets too close.
Now we also need to talk about, well, hostile environment. I mean, it's not like that you're flying in peacetime around, but you're also getting into hostile environment. Is there any special protection of the aircraft? Because I mean, the aircraft is big, flying not that fast. Is there anything?
No, we don't really have protection to fly in hostile territory. Of course, we have some small protections, like a bulletproof cockpit.
Oh,
for
really?
small
So that's bulletproof?
Yeah, that's bulletproof, and also so lower above the ground we have some kind of protection. But once we're in the air doing refuel, there's nothing that we have to protect the tanker. So then we really have to rely on the fighters that are escorting us to keep the tanker safe. If they don't keep us safe, they don't get any fuel.
Understood. Talking about altitude, at which altitude are you normally refueling?
Yeah, also it's a little bit different per receiver, so every aircraft has different aerodynamical characteristics. So for us today it was like at flight level 280, but it can be a little higher, it can be a little lower, depending on the airspace that we have and also the receiver. So we tend not to be too high, because if we're too high, then for the receiver it's pretty difficult to fly formation because the air gets thinner.
Yeah.
So it's in the little bit in the intermediate bracket, so not too high, not too low.
And in terms of speed?
The speed is also a little different per aircraft. It's around 300 knots typically, plus or minus 10 knots on the fighters. If you have bigger receivers it can be a little different, but also every receiver has his own speed in which he flies the best.
Okay, well Chris, thank you very much for taking us on this flight today, for experiencing firsthand what it means to refuel fighter aircraft, to refuel Eurofighters. And of course, also you got the official Fighter Show patch, Chris. That's yours. Thank you very much.
We'll stick it on right away. Huh?
Great.
There we go.
Perfect. Fits very well. Now guys, we are leaving now the tanker aircraft and go really to the other side of the basket. That means we're going to a Eurofighter squadron here in Germany and talk to them about the challenges and the training they do with air-to-air refueling. This is the Fighter Show with Flo.
So here we are at the other side of the basket. Welcome to Nürnberg, welcome to the Tactical Fighter Wing 31 Birke of the German Air Force. And next to me is now instructor pilot and member of the German Eurofighter demo team. Bam Bam, hi, how are you doing?
Hey, good to see you.
Bam Bam, air-to-air refueling. Question for you, more routine or challenge?
I would say the real challenge is, especially when you have very turbulent air and the basket's moving up and down fairly hard. You maybe don't have much fuel left, so you know you got to make the next 2 or 3 attempts count to actually make it back or where you got to go, and the pressure rises, so it gets intense circumstances.
But what exactly are you doing? I mean, you're running out of fuel. You've got turbulences and you just don't hit the basket. What's your exit plan? I mean, you just can't leave the cockpit.
No, you can't. Once the fuel runs in and you know you have no more attempt left, at some point you have to abort the mission, and you gotta make it home to the field where you have to go, where you planned the fuel to.
Talking a bit focus. I mean, you're approaching the tanker, and on which parts are you focusing then?
Yeah, what we got to do, well, first you got to find the tanker. You fly rejoin on the tanker. You fly next to him. You tell him that you're there, basically. He tells you that you can get behind the boom, behind the probe. And then at some point, once you're in a close position where you need to be, that's when in the end game you just focus on the probe and the basket.
I mean, you can imagine that it's even more challenging than to tank during night when there is no vision at all. How do you do that?
Yes, it is. The tanker itself looks like a Christmas tree. It has a whole lot of lights.
Yeah.
The problem is the hose you basically don't see, and the basket is it should be illuminated. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't really work, and then it gets very gnarly. It's just hard to see. It gets more complicated, but you can still do it with a little bit of experience, and you start training in the day, so then at some point you're able to do it at night.
So it's really the routine that counts.
Yes,
Can you train things like that in the simulator?
No, you cannot. Actually, the simulator, you can train to fly yourself in the perfect position, but the end game where you actually put the probe in the basket, so to speak, you cannot train that in the simulator. So you have to do it outside live.
And how much do you see? I mean, when we're looking out of the window here from the Typhoon, we see the probe, but it's not really much you see, or is that a different view from the pilot's point of view?
Well, it's. I think it's enough to see.
Yeah.
You see everything that you have to see. It probably could be better, but it's good enough.
So you see what you need to see.
Yeah, you see exactly what you need to see. At the end game, you're so tensed and so focused on that basket that it's narrow anyway. So you see enough.
Cool. Last question. Asking for a friend.
Yeah.
Can you show me the button where you extract the probe?
Yes, 100%. It is right here. It's a safety guarded switch that you flip open, put it to out, and that extends the probe.
Well, Bam Bam, thank you very much for giving us the insight on what it means for a fighter pilot to do air-to-air refueling. And of course, you also get the official Fighter Show patch. That's yours.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Guys, that was our Fighter Show episode on air-to-air refueling. We saw the tankers, we flew with the tanker, and we saw the Eurofighters being refueled. And now we got the view of a fighter pilot and his feelings when he's approaching the tanker. Take care, see you soon, and may the Air Force